Hello, everyone. I think we are up. I think we're live. I think we are going. Hello. Welcome to another episode of the live chat. It is so good to be back, everyone. It is so good to see y'all. Thanks, everyone who is hopping into the stream. Don't think there's too much housekeeping notes today right off the bat. I don't think there's a ton there. So let's dive straight very first into the main topics we can talk about. There are several that we can discuss today. So one of the big ones, of course, is going to be September NPD results for the US market are out. That is right. We have a ton of updates on sales for games like Marvel's Avengers, Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 HD, Super Mario 3D All-Stars, and all of that goodness. So we can break all of that down. There's a whole bunch of big new releases, so we have context for some of the sales around those games. So we can break that down. Also, a new interview with Phil Spencer from Xbox just came out. He just did a big interview with Kotaku where he talks about Bethesda. He talks about the Xbox brand. He talks about Halo Infinite. A whole bunch there. So we can break down and kind of piece out what of that is interesting. What does it all mean? PlayStation just showcased their new UI for the PlayStation 5 this week, which did huge metrics online. So there's actually quite a bit. There's quite a few topics we can talk about. So for anyone that's joining the chat for the very first time, basically the way this works, you drop your comments, you drop your questions down into chat, and I hit as many as possible. We stream for about an hour, hour and a half or so total. So I hit as many as I can within that time frame. So if there's anything you want to talk about, drop it in chat. Now, if you want to guarantee that I get to your question, of course, the super chat option is there. Don't feel obligated to go into the super chat. I answer free questions as well, but super chat guarantees that I hit your question, whereas the free questions, I get to as many as possible, but of course, I can't always hit all of them. So thanks everyone for jumping in. I'm going to dive straight into your comments because like I said, there's not a whole bunch off the top. Actually, one more thing. Let me do one more thing before we do that. I'm really quick going to give you your top 20 for NPD, just in case anyone hasn't seen it yet. I'm sure most of you diving into chat have seen the top 20, but I am going to give that really quick. So number one, the best-selling game of September was Marvel's Avengers. That is right. Avengers debuts at number one, and it is also the second highest tracked dollar sales for any superhero game in US market history, only behind Marvel's Spider-Man. So that's actually a really strong result. It's actually very good because you have to consider that means it debuted stronger than any of the Batman Arkham titles, which as we know, games like Arkham Knight and Arkham City were huge sellers. So to be the number two highest debut, good result for Avengers. Number two is Super Mario 3D All-Stars, which also had an amazing result. It's the second biggest physical sales of any game so far this year. Now, keep in mind, 3D All-Stars does not include digital because Nintendo does not share that with NPD, but just the physical sales were the second biggest of any game this year, so very good. Madden NFL 21 is at number 3 in its second month. Tony Hawk Pro Skater 1 and 2 debuts at number 4, and it's the biggest launch for any Tony Hawk game ever in US history. So if you notice, there's a reason why my title says Avengers, Mario, and Tony Hawk sales impress, because those three did great. Great results for all three of those. NBA 2K21 debuts at number 5. There's something key here to keep in mind, though. Digital is not included in NBA this year, so that actually would have been much higher than number 5. Could have possibly even been number 1 over Avengers. Possibly. I'm thinking it probably would have, but we don't have digital on that, so no way to know for sure. But like I said, keep that 5 debut for NBA in context. Number 6 is Call of Duty Modern Warfare. Number 7 is Crusader Kings 3, which is a great result for that game. Number 8 is Animal Crossing New Horizons. Number 9, Star Wars Squadrons debuts at number 9, which, keep in mind, that game is not full price. It's $40. And it also came out basically at the very end of the tracking period. So I think that's actually probably pretty decent for that type of game. It's not like a mind-blowingly good result, but it's decent, especially for the cheaper price and when it came out. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is at number 10. Crash Bandicoot 4, it's about time, at number 11. Very few days tracked, but also not a very impressive launch. I'm sure we can go into that. There's going to be some questions, I'm sure. Ghost of Tsushima, so glad to see that game still on the charts at number 12, which is great, right? This game came out in July, so it's had July, August, September. 3 months in the top 20. I'm glad to see that. Ring Fit Adventure, number 13. Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, number 14. UFC 4, number 15. Mario Bros. U Deluxe, number 16. Breath of the Wild, 17. Mario Odyssey, 18. Mortal Kombat 11, 19. And Super Mario Party, number 20. Okay, that's your top 20, everyone. Now let's get to your comments and questions. Oh, for hardware, for anyone that wants to know, Switch is at number 1. Colossal month. PlayStation 4 is at number 2. And Xbox is down at number 3. Okay. So we have a super chat to kick this off. So let me hit that super chat before we get into the free questions. Plastic Card Podcast with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, Plastic Cards Podcast. You're always so kind on here. Benji Boy, keep dusting those fanboy haters off your shoulders. Oh yeah, it's a little lively on Twitter right now with the whole Bethesda Xbox thing. With Cyberpunk dropping on Stadia day 1, should PC players really wait and see performance? What's Stadia in 2021 look like to you? Great question, Plastic Heart. So here's what I'll say. It is nice to see developers, including, CD Projekt Red with Cyberpunk, supporting Stadia. It is nice to see that. In terms of what Stadia is going to look like in 2021, I'm just not feeling strong about it. I have to be honest. With new consoles about to launch, I feel like that's going to take so much attention in the market. So many people focused on that. Stadia just has had a slow rollout in general in terms of performance, right? We haven't seen like just giant numbers for anything in regards to Stadia. Trust me, if they had big numbers, they'd be bragging about it, and they don't. So that should essentially tell you what you need to know about what Stadia is doing right now. I don't know that I'm going to, go out there and say Stadia is just gone in 2021. Like they're going to crash and burn and just drop out. I have a feeling they're still going to stick around for another couple of years and see if they can get this thing rolling. But I would say I'm not expecting necessarily big things from Stadia this next year. It just doesn't seem like something that's taking off to me. In regards to should PC players wait and see the performance, I don't think so. I think this game's going to be gigantic on PC. CD Projekt Red is a huge developer on PC in general, right? Look at how strong Witcher sales have been on PC. So I would say as long as you have a decent rig, you shouldn't have to wait. I'm sure it's going to be pretty darn demanding on the highest end settings, the ultra settings and stuff, right? They've released the system requirements for that. So, but their CD Projekt Red kind of comes from PC roots, so I have a feeling that the Cyberpunk port should be pretty good. All right. We have another super chat here really quick from Raphael. Thank you so much for the super chat. Thank you. Hi, Benji. Based on that new Phil Spencer interview to Kotaku, do you believe Microsoft can reduce the time between new console iterations? Ooh, this is interesting. Good question, Raphael. Like new consoles every 2 or 3 years. Greetings from Brazil. Greetings to Brazil. And that is a fascinating question. That is actually very fascinating. So do I think Microsoft could potentially reduce the time between console iterations? It is possible. Do I think they're going to go that route? Not necessarily, but it's not impossible, right? So we see phones hit the market every single year, right? Every single year, there's a new iteration of a phone. There's a new iPhone. There's a new Samsung flagship phone. There's a new, you could go on and on down the list. So we know consumers are willing to spend big money on new consumer products essentially yearly, right? You even see this now with things like Apple Watches and things like this, where even if, let's say, it's not every year, it's like every 2 years or so like that, it's quick, right? You see a lot of iteration on various high-end consumer products that are very expensive and they sell great. So is the potential there that, yes, with things like Game Pass, with things like xCloud, that Microsoft could make things come out a little bit quicker? I would say yes, but I'm personally not necessarily expecting that. I still think that for now, at least, we're going to still stick to a 5 to 6 year generation cycle, potentially even up to 7, but I don't think so. I think this gen will be 5 to 6 years, probably 6 if I had to guess. I don't think that we're necessarily going to have a new, let's say, Xbox on the market in 2 or 3 years. I wouldn't say it's impossible. We saw mid-gen refreshes this cycle, right? We saw the Xbox One X. We saw the PlayStation 4 Pro. So the precedent is there, but I'm still personally suspecting that, no, that it'll be a normal full-length console cycle. But it's a great question, Raphael, and thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat. JCat with a super chat, and it's so good to see you, JCat. It's so good to see you. I don't find Phil Spencer's answers today to be surprising. I assumed that Bethesda games would be exclusive, and why would he have said anything other than, yes, we'll make our money back? JCat, so let's go into this really quick before we go into some of the NPD stuff, because I know this is a hot topic. I know that this is, let's say, very controversial online. I made a tweet about it, and my goodness, my mentions are on fire. So, okay, let's really quick break down what exactly Phil said. So it's kind of a two-parter, right? The first part of the question was essentially, can Microsoft make their money back? They spent $7.5 billion, and the way the question was phrased to Phil was, can you make that money back skipping the direct game mentioned was the Elder Scrolls 6 on PlayStation. Can you make your money back if you skip that? And the interviewer notes that very quickly Phil Spencer says yes. Then he kind of expands on that, right? He says that they have xCloud, they have Game Pass, they have console, that they don't necessarily need to support any platforms outside of that in PC for the deal to make sense for them. That's kind of basically, he's alluding that's their focus. He says that this deal wasn't made specifically to take games away from other platforms. And you're seeing people get into essentially gigantic arguments online about what does that mean? Is Phil Spencer saying that Bethesda games are exclusive, or is he saying they're not taking games away? Here is my perspective on it, okay? And I'm going to be upfront and perfectly honest that I could be wrong, right? This is one of those things that it's a gigantic deal. We still, even with this statement, don't have concrete facts, but I feel like we have a good idea on where Phil's going here. So I personally think Bethesda games, for the majority, the bulk, the Elder Scrolls, the Fallouts, I think those games are not coming to PlayStation 5. I really do not believe that. And I think basically with what Phil's saying here, it's reinforcing that. So people are alluding to, well, hey, he said that he didn't do this deal to take games away from other platforms, that he wants everyone to be able to use games. Well, yes, he's saying, I didn't buy Bethesda, we didn't buy Bethesda for the specific only reason to take games away from PS5. But that is more than likely, yes, a side effect, right? Because if you buy the company, if you spend $7.5 billion, I just don't get why you would. Okay, at first when this news came out, I thought that the biggest games would still probably be multi-platform. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought about xCloud, the more I thought about Game Pass. Microsoft wants to boost their ecosystem. And yes, on their own, those games, even just owning them, even if they're on PS5, that is going to boost Game Pass subs. But it will boost them even more if you don't give anyone an option but to put them on Xbox and xCloud and PC. So I just don't think it's going to happen. I think, yes, it's still vague. It is weird that Microsoft isn't just flat out saying no to PlayStation. I think they're kind of giving themselves that option, let's say, if things don't go the way that they think they're going to. But I agree with you, JCat. I don't find his comments surprising. And yes, they can make their money back just specifically through Game Pass and things like this, because Game Pass is rapidly increasing, right? We saw it at 10 million in April. We saw it at 15 million just a few months ago. I think they're going to be at 20 million subs by the end of the year, especially with the new console launch and things like this. So Game Pass isn't right now a giant moneymaker for them, they've said, but it's going to be. It is definitely moving that way. So that's kind of my thoughts. If someone disagrees and they say that they don't think that that these games are going to be exclusive to Xbox and PC, that they are going to come to PlayStation, I don't think you're crazy for saying that. I don't think so. I think they're going to be only Xbox and PC. Super chats are rolling in. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for all these super chats. Thank you so much. Timmer72299. And great work, Timmer. Always on Twitter. I always love giving you a shout out in these chats. Anyone that doesn't follow Timmer does great work pulling up, especially game budgets. Also sales too. Timmer finds a lot of interesting stuff about sales on LinkedIn, but especially game budgets. That's the thing I find most fascinating that you do, Timmer, because that stuff is hard to find, right? Sales data, we kind of get updates on that, but you don't hear often about game budgets. So keep up the great work, Timmer. Hi, Benji. Do you think Nintendo will ever reveal how much the Mario games cost? Oh, that's a good question, because I've found nothing on LinkedIn. Plus, keep up the great work. Same to you, Timmer. That is fascinating. That is a fascinating question, Timber. So we kind of had an idea for Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that came out at one point, that game was budgeted around 100 million. I could be misremembering here, so I really apologize, everyone, if I get this wrong. But I believe we kind of got some context at one point that Breath of the Wild was essentially a $100 million budget game. It could have even been a little bit more than that, but I think that the info that came out was it was essentially at least 100 million. So huge, right? That's a big budget. We've seen even bigger, of course, but $100 million is not cheap. I suspect, and this is a guess, Timur, I don't think that Mario games cost 100 million plus, but I could be wrong on that. Especially, I would say maybe with things like Odyssey and whatever comes next after Odyssey, that could potentially go up to 100 million plus, especially as like assets get more advanced and they're the big 3D games and things like that. So it could be for these big new 3D Marios we're hitting that level, but I'm willing to bet like the 2D games, especially the 2D Marios, I'd be surprised if those had $100 million plus budgets. Nintendo's a company that is very good with margins and with like running their companies not super expensively. If you remember, even during the Wii U generation, which was a complete catastrophic failure for them. The 3DS was doing pretty strong, but the Wii U was, it was just a failure. They still actually had, not great, but like decent in terms of like generating profit and not like losing tons of money. So they're a company that is good at that, right? Not having insane inflated budgets. So I'm going to guess, like I said, maybe like the newest Mario games might be hitting that 100 million range. But I really doubt that the 2Ds and older ones did. And I'm willing to bet quite a bit less on most of those. But will we ever find them out? Probably not. Specifically because Nintendo does seem especially to be pretty private on that kind of stuff. Kellegrim with a super chat. What is up, Kellegrim? What is up? Saying, sup, Benji. Back to nights this month, so I got to get back to bed. But before I do, which UI do you prefer? PS5 or Xbox? Well, thanks for coming in, Kellegrim. It's great to see you here, like always, man. Bummer you're going back to nights. Which UI do I prefer? The PlayStation 5. Between the PS5 and the Xbox One that we've seen, I think that PS5 one looks really cool, really sleek. I really like a lot of the elements that they introduced in there, like the activities and stuff, where it's like basically a one click and you're right back into like different levels of games, different goals. I just like it. I prefer the PlayStation 5 UI over the Xbox. I will say the Xbox UI has gotten better over time. I think like the early Xbox One UI was really rough, to be honest with you, but they've really improved things like the store especially. But between the two, I do prefer PS5. All right, 2 more super chats and then we're back to free questions, everyone. But thank you for all these super chats that poured in early. Killian Butler with a super chat. Thank you, Killian. Great to see you. Hey, Benji, great to catch another live chat. Have you ever considered setting up a Discord? It would be cool to talk about games and be able for us to play games online. You could use mods to help run it. Killian, this is a really common request for me, is to start a Discord. So I have 2 thoughts about it. On one hand, I would love to, right? Because I love the community we have. I mean, seriously, so many people are in here every single chat. So many people on Twitter are great. So on one hand, it would be awesome to have a nice Discord for us to all, have fun and talk about sales and games and whatever. But on the other side, like running a Discord, especially I think for the size one that we would get, it would, put it this way, whenever I've tweeted about having a possible Discord one time, I had literally hundreds of DMs from people asking to join the Discord. So it would be a big Discord very quickly. And that's a lot to handle. That's a lot to handle, especially because I have like a normal day job. I do, the YouTube and Twitter thing on top of that. Plus I do, I have a 2-year-old daughter. So I would say, Killian, it is not impossible that a Discord gets up and running. If things keep moving in the direction we're going, right? I want to start a podcast. I want to eventually get a Patreon going. I want to do a whole bunch of stuff to where hopefully eventually I can do this full time, right? That would be amazing if I don't have to go to retail every day. I can just really focus on all this and improving my content. If we get to that kind of range, Killian, I will start a Discord. Yep. If I don't have a day job to deal with on top of that, it will happen. But as of now, I just have so much on my plate that I think even with mods, it would be a challenge. But thank you, Killian. Case by case basis. Love the username. And thanks for the super chat, case by case. In regards to the questions of Ragnarok's quick turnaround of 2021, yes, very quick. Could we start to see big AAA games release in parts? Could that be Sony's answer to Xbox's onslaught of releases in 21 and beyond? It's possible case by case. Here's what I would like to see. I have a feeling Ragnarok is just straight up God of War 2, right? There's been some debate. I say 2. You all know what I mean. Like, that we have God of War 2 before, but the sequel to the new God of War. I have a feeling that is the full-fledged game. I don't think it's like a middle game. Some people have said, is this like a Uncharted Lost Legacy or something like that? I don't think so. I think this is full on the next God of War game. But what I would like to see case-by-case basis is more of these like Spider-Man Miles Morales type games or Uncharted Lost Legacy. I would love to see more of those hit the market. I think it's actually really good for the market to do that sort of thing. You're seeing that Miles Morales is out within 2 years from launch, right? Instead of having to wait like 3 or 4 years for a full-fledged sequel. I would love to see more of these more middle-sized projects every like 2 years. And then like the big next sequel, maybe like a 4-year gap. Because I have a feeling that Spider-Man 2 is going to probably be a 2022 game about, right? Or 2023, right? 2022, 2023, something like that. So in parts, I think not so much case by case, but I do think you are going to see more maybe of these more mid-sized middle projects. Okay, let's hit some free questions. Thank you, everyone, for the super chats. Thank you so much. That was very awesome. There was a barrage of them. So let me hit these free questions now. Forzathon saying the new thumbnail style is looking fly, Benji. Thank you, Forzathon. I really do like the new way I'm doing thumbnails on my YouTube. I'm kind of just following a set template across all of my recent thumbnails that it's not like a pre-made one. I make them. But I do like it. Yeah, I think it just looks cleaner. Yeah, it's not maybe the most exciting thumbnail, but I just like it. I appreciate that, Forzathon, because I do like this method that I'm doing now. Kostas, how much do you think Ghost of Tsushima and The Last of Us 2 have sold by now? Ooh, good question. Also, which will open higher, God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Zero Dawn 2, which is on 2 platforms? Man, Kostas, you're always asking some good questions. Okay, so Ghost of Tsushima is probably at... Well, we know it has, in the US at least, surpassed Final Fantasy VII Remake, right? We know that. It just happened this month. So this month with September NPD, Ghost of Tsushima has now passed Final Fantasy VII Remake. And Final Fantasy VII Remake has sold over 5 million units. We know that because Square Enix released official PR for that. So if that was over 5 million, granted, we don't know in all of markets. You know, we know, for example, in Japan, Ghost of Tsushima has not surpassed Final Fantasy VII Remake, though it has done very well in Japan. I'm going to say probably right around 6 million for Ghost of Tsushima. I think it's right around there. I definitely think it's over 5. 5 to 6 million, somewhere in that range, Kostas. That's what makes the most sense to me, seeing that it has surpassed Final Fantasy in the US. The US was a huge market for Final Fantasy VII Remake, so for Ghost to pass Final Fantasy there, that's very good. So, yeah, 5 to 6 million, Kostas. I'd be surprised if it's up to 7 million now. I don't think it's hit that yet, but 5 to 6. The Last of Us Part 2 is probably... Oh, man... I'm going to say probably maybe 7 million-ish, right around there. Maybe a little bit more. It could be 7 to 8. Probably right in that range for The Last of Us, 7 to 8 million-ish. I don't think it's hit 10 million yet. I think we would have gotten an announcement for that, so I don't think it's at 10 million yet. And in terms of which will open higher, God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Zero Dawn 2. Now, this is a fascinating question because let's look at some historical data, right? So we know that God of War 2018 had a bigger launch than Horizon Zero Dawn 1, right? Don't think that's too shocking. Horizon Zero Dawn 1, or, you know, Forbidden West. I know we all keep saying Horizon Zero Dawn 2 when it's Horizon Forbidden West, but it's just like so easy to do. But Horizon Zero Dawn opened lower than God of War 2018. Now, God of War is a giant franchise. It's very well known in PlayStation, you know, ecosystem. It's been a huge IP for Sony for a very long time, whereas Zero Dawn was a brand new IP. So I don't think that's shocking at all that we saw God of War open higher. However, Horizon has grown greatly as a brand, right? It's sold over 10 million units, well over 10 million units. It's become this huge beast. As you mentioned, it's going to be on PlayStation 4 as well as PlayStation 5. And right now with Ragnarok, we don't know. Is that cross-gen or is that PS5 only? That game we do not have clarity on yet. So, Kostas, this is a great question. Here's what I'll say. I think both of these games will open higher than God of War 2018. I think Ragnarok and, even if Ragnarok's PS5 only, I think that and Horizon Zero Dawn 2 are both going to open higher than 2018, which was over 3 million units. So that's an amazing result either way for both of these. So which will open higher? I'm going to say Ragnarok. I think it's going to be Ragnarok. I mean, I think that game's going to be freaking huge. Horizon Forbidden West is going to be enormous as well, and it does have the PlayStation 4. But, I mean, God of War 2018, that game is so beloved. It won Game of the Year awards all over the place. I mean, that game, I feel like the anticipation for that game, once we start seeing the ramp up, once we see that game in-game, yeah, here's what I'll say. If it's God of War 2, if this is the next full-fledged God of War, yeah, I think Ragnarok opens higher than Forbidden West, but they're both going to be giant. Joni or Joannie? Hey, Benji, since Watch Dogs Legion comes out about a week before the launch of next-gen consoles, do you expect it to underperform? This is a great question. We've seen a few games recently kind of underperform at retail at least. And I think part of that does have to do with these games that are launching just before next gen launch. The ones I'm really pointing out here are Crash 4, Star Wars Squadrons, those kinds of games. So I don't think Star Wars Squadrons is a huge miss, but it also didn't light the world on fire. I do think part of that is so many people literally next month are about to drop hundreds of dollars on new consoles, new games, things like that. Watch Dogs Legion, here's what I'll say, Joni. I think it could potentially not have a crazy launch day one, though I think it is going to do well. But I think it's so close to next gen that a lot of people are going to be buying this game for their Xbox Series X's, for their PlayStation 5s. So actually, I think it's going to do really well over the course of this holiday because it is getting patched for next gen. It is having, improvements, and Watch Dogs is a big franchise. So, Joni, I would say don't be shocked if necessarily the launch week isn't mind-blowing, but I think it'll do well over the holiday in general. All right, we had a super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat really quick. Case by case basis with another super chat. Thank you so much. Second one of the chat. Thank you. In regards to Bethesda plus Xbox, everyone rightly focuses on the Elder Scrolls, Fallout, Doom. However, I think in 10 years they will say Starfield was the biggest get. It has potential case by case basis. So I think one reason people don't mention Starfield as much is because we just haven't seen it yet, right? It's one of those things that franchises are always going to get the most focus in discussions because it's a known quantity, right? We know that the next Elder Scrolls is going to be gigantic. There's no doubt about it. Is it going to match Skyrim sales, the best-selling RPG of all time? That's more up for question. But will it be giant? Yes. Then Elder Scrolls 6 will be huge. Fallout, right? Yes, Fallout 76 was really mixed, really rough, but, it was still pretty big. And Fallout 4 shipped 12 million units the day it came out. Day one, 12 million units for Fallout 4. So we know Fallout's huge. But in regards to, Starfield, it's just unknown. Is that going to be an Elder Scrolls-sized game? Is it going to be a Fallout-sized game? We just don't know. So case by case, I would say for sure Starfield has the potential, especially being sci-fi. But with it being a new IP, it's just harder to gauge where it's going to sell. But you could be totally right, case by case. It could be one of those things. If Starfield's really freaking good, it could be right up there with the Elder Scrolls and Dooms and Fallouts. Definitely possible. Thank you for the super chat. All right, let's get to some more free questions. Benji's tank top for a username. This is the best thing I've ever seen. So I've not been rocking the tank top lately, as I'm sure you all can notice. And that is because it is October, and where I live, it is getting cold over here, y'all. Not freezing cold or anything, but the temperature's been in the 40s and 50s. So little cold for the tank top, but don't worry. The tank top will return once it starts getting warm. So right now it's been, I'm wearing a flannel today. So right now it's a little cold for the tank, but it'll come back. Don't you worry. And I love the username. Hey, thanks everyone for hitting 100 in chat. Thank you so much. KH. Hey Benji, Switch broke the record from the Xbox 360 for being 21 months in a row at number 1 in the US. Yes, amazing. 22 consecutive months. Switch is now 22 months in a row the best-selling console in the US. Just wow, what a turnaround. K, it is mind-blowing. So Switch is on a pace right now. If it keeps this up, if we see the kind of results that we're seeing from the Switch in 2020 into 2021, if they keep this pace up, we start asking the crazy question, K, of can the Switch match the PS2? Well, we're approaching that range if it does these sort of numbers next year. Now, that's a big if, right? Because 2020 has been colossal for the Switch. Just colossal. And in general, as you mentioned, it's been more than just this year. It's 22 months in a row now, almost 2 full years as the best-selling platform every single month in the US. But if it has a 2020 type performance in 2021, it's going to be racing after that PS2 crown. I still personally don't quite think the Switch is going to match the PS2, but it's going to do like 130 million, 120, 130 million plus range. I mean, it's on track to be an absolute monster. Put it this way, being the second best-selling console of all time, I think is very likely. Very likely. And number one is potentially in play. Split End saying, how about that PS5 UI and Spider-Man the Cat? Well, Split End 89, thanks for being the best mod in the business. Everyone give a shout out to Split End 89 for his awesome work modding chat. Yeah, the PS5 UI looks great. Kind of talked about it a little bit earlier. I think it looks slick. I like a lot of the features of it. To me, it looks like a big improvement over the PS4. And the thing I'm most excited about is that the store is going to load quickly. Anyone with a PlayStation 4 can tell you the PlayStation Store sucks in terms of how slow it is. It's so slow. So knowing that the store is going to be way faster to me is just great news. And Spider Cat is awesome. Love it. Love seeing the Spider Cat. Let me grab a drink of some coffee really quick, y'all. All right, Batwing. Hello, Benji. Do you think future Bethesda publishing titles like Doom and the next Fallout will be multi-platform or Xbox exclusive? We went into that, Batwing. I think they're going to be exclusives. Yeah, I really do think so. KH. Switch should have done around 600,000 in September. Can you wink if that's correct? K, I can't. I cannot give away NPD's proprietary data. I am sorry. All I can say is Switch did amazing. Amazing. Can't give no winks. You can find a lot of that stuff on your own. It does always pop up online somewhere, but I don't leak their data out of respect for NPD. But it did huge. Yeah, huge. Okay, we have a super chat. Let me hit that super chat. Thank you for all these super chats, everyone. It means the world to me. Really helps me, everyone. I cannot stress enough. Like I said, all the super chats that have come in over the course of this year, they all went into a pool. I don't just spend them on frivolous things. I'm gonna really quick explain something about the super chats really quick, because there's a next step to this. So I want everyone to know what you're giving your money towards, right? That you're not just throwing away your money, because I really do appreciate them. So basically all the super chats over the last year have all gone towards a pool of funding for the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X. So thank you, everyone. Because of your super chats, I'm going to be able to get both of them at launch. I probably would not have been able to do that without you. So that helps my coverage a lot, right? Of course, I focus on sales, but anyone that follows me knows I talk about games and all of that in general. So that helps me a lot. You have directly helped my coverage of covering games. So the next step after this, once the consoles are out, all of the super chats are going to be going into a pool, the next pool, and that is going to be turning this room, this basement that you all always see me in, into a more dedicated streaming space. I want to get a TV for down here. I want to get a nice setup for streaming games on Twitch and things like that. A new desk, because I'm on a tiny desk right now. So the desk is going to be a much bigger desk. I'm going to get another monitor set up in here. So hopefully, and maybe eventually a new camera to really improve the way these chats work, the way they look, and to also start streaming. So I just wanted to really quick get that out there so you guys know what you're spending your money on. The next batch after these consoles come out is going to be really improving all of the infrastructure and setup for streaming. So thank you, everyone. Okay, so back to these super chats that just came in. Killian Butler. Do you think Nintendo should just stick with the Switch and revise/update it every couple years? They're in a unique market compared to Sony and Xbox. Great question, Killian. So here's my thoughts on that. I definitely think whatever Nintendo does next is going to be basically some type of Switch, right? I don't think that's a bold prediction. I'm sure we all expect that, but you all know Nintendo. They do some weird stuff, right? We go from like a GameCube to a Wii to a Wii U, right? We go from like a regular dedicated console with a controller to motion controls to tablet controller to Switch, which is a hybrid. It's all over the place. Nintendo kind of does their own thing. I definitely think, Killian, that whatever is next is essentially another Switch. You know, the Switch 2 or whatever you will, whatever they end up calling the next generation of Switch. I think it is going to be, again, another hybrid, a home console that will also be a portable as the main unit. So I do think they're going to stick to that because that method has been so successful for them. It would be crazy to me to abandon that and then do some other weird experiment. I think whatever it is, it's some kind of Switch. Now, do I think they should always just do revise and updates and not a straight up next generation? I don't necessarily think so, Killian, because the as amazing as the Switch is right now, a lot of the hardware in it is getting pretty old, especially, let's say, another 3 years from now, because Nintendo themselves have publicly stated that the Switch is about halfway through its life cycle right now. So that to me says we have another about 3 years on the market for the Switch. I think they should do a hardcore cutoff. That way they can, put some newer tech into the base level of the Switch and really bring those specs up. So, Killian, it's a great idea. I do think you're going to see more revisions. I do think there is going to be another revision of the Switch that's out right now. But just continuously doing it, I don't think so. I think they should cut it off at some point and have a Switch 2, which I think they'll do in about 3 years. Timmer with the super chat. Do you see LinkedIn Twitter pulling the plug on my data mining operation as my account grows? Or do you think they think companies just don't care? So Timmer, it's a great question. I appreciate all that data mining you do because it's a lot of effort to go through and do that. Here's what I'll say. Will they pull it? I don't know so much, but you might see people be a little bit more careful with what they put on their LinkedIn as that stuff gets more and more attention, right? Right now, a lot of that stuff kind of flies under the radar, right? Like I said, you're one of the only people I see that are constantly digging up game budgets and things like that. So you could see people be more selective about what they put on their LinkedIn. Here's what I'll tell you, which is very frustrating to me. The gaming industry is very private. They are very quiet. And this is a known thing, right? That's kind of one of the reasons why I do what I do, because I feel like a lot of people, my mission statement, if you will, whenever I came onto Twitter and whenever I came onto YouTube, was to try to help bring perspective to the average gamer about what is going on in the gaming industry, because it is one of those things that's just like so in the shadows, right? As everyone knows, I'm not really a leaker. I don't come on here and just give you NPD's data, but I really try to give you that context because I think it's important. I think it's very important that people know. So Timmer, I will tell you that gaming companies don't like a lot of stuff being out there. They just don't. Most developers and people that work at publishers actually don't really care. There's a reason why so many of them follow me and follow people like you, because they do like to see that. But let's say the executives, they don't like that stuff to be out there. So yeah, you might just see people be more careful about it. Benji with a super chat. Hi, Benji. Game Pass and GameStop partnership, Series S, smart delivery. Is Microsoft the most disruptive video game manufacturer passing Nintendo? This is a good question, Benji. I will say that Microsoft is the one, between Microsoft and Sony, Microsoft is definitely the one shaking up the industry more between the two right now. Sony is still sticking to a fairly traditional way of running their gaming business, right? Like if you look at everything Sony's doing, it's not that different than the PlayStation 4. And I don't blame them, because look at how colossal of a success the PlayStation 4 has been. But what I mean is they're still all about their console. They're still all about, the big first party exclusive games. They have things like streaming services with PS Now, but they're not like all in on pushing services. It's still a fairly traditional model that Sony is doing. Whereas, as you mentioned, Microsoft is really rocking the boat. They're doing a whole bunch of stuff that's different than what we've seen before, from pushing services incredibly hard through Game Pass, from really expanding streaming with xCloud, from, as you mentioned, now they have a partnership with GameStop where GameStop themselves is going to be earning money off of Xbox consoles sold from the digital sales of games going down the line. So Microsoft is definitely doing a lot more to disrupt the industry. Are they doing it more than Nintendo? Yeah. Yes. Well, let me clarify this. So Nintendo has the biggest, at least traditionally, upside of their disruptions, right? You see Nintendo, when they do something crazy, it just skyrocket. Now, I don't think you're going to see Microsoft games selling like Animal Crossing, for example, their first-party games. But they are doing more than anyone right now that's just different. So, yeah, I would say particularly in business. I'm not going to say with game development. So I think Nintendo is still more bold than Microsoft in terms of doing like really weird, I mean, look at Ring Fit, right? I can't see modern Microsoft making Ring Fit, right? That's something that's just something, when you see it, that's a Nintendo thing, right? That just screams Nintendo. So in terms of game development, I still put Nintendo as more disruptive than Microsoft in terms of at any moment they can come out with something totally crazy and it's just going to sell a boatload of units. But in terms of business model, yeah, I think Microsoft is more disruptive than Nintendo in terms of business right now. All right. Super chat from Benji's Tank Top. I'm friends with Phil Spencer's tank top. He has Xbox logos all over, which makes me jealous. He says that someone could make a documentary on what Phil has done for Xbox. I agree. I would love to see that. That would be super interesting. I would love to see more documentaries in general, right? So I really love and appreciate the work that NoClip does. Because a lot of that stuff is behind the scenes, right? We haven't had a ton of like hardcore documentaries on things. I would love to see NoClip do a documentary on like the Xbox, like Series X, S, and the build up to that, or Microsoft themselves put one out. I mean, I would love that, right? How much more context would that give us around things that are going on in the industry? Like if you go back and watch, you know, for example, like the NoClip documentary on Horizon Zero Dawn, it's so interesting. Or the one that Sony put out for God of War. I mean, it's amazing to see the things that go on to make gaming happen. So a documentary on what Phil's doing and what the Xbox brand's doing would be amazing, but it doesn't seem to be something that I think would happen. But thank you for the super chat. Hey, Split End, can you ban J-Dub? He's doing all kinds of crazy stuff in the chat. I put him in timeout, but yeah, if you could ban him or whatever. Okay. Split89 with a super chat saying, can't wait to stream with you, buddy. Here's to that. Thank you, Split89. Yes, once I get the stream setup going, one of my main goals with the stream is going to be getting the community involved. So a lot of the stuff I'm going to stream, I'll stream like new releases and stuff too. Because as you all know, I basically buy all the new games anyways. But yeah, I want to stream like Ghost of Tsushima multiplayer co-op. I want to stream you know, Overwatch and Destiny 2 and things like that. And I want to get the community involved too. So anyone that has those games can jump in with me on stream. And yeah, Split in at 89, of course you're going to stream with me. Tony J with a super chat. Hey Benji, with the success of Tony Hawk Remastered and potential success of Skate 4, do you think we could see EA give the SSX series another shot? That's a great question, Tony. So yes, Tony Hawk did amazing, and I had a feeling it would, right? Back whenever this was first announced, Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD, like the very first announcement, blew up on Twitter and YouTube, right? as anyone that follows me knows, I do a lot of looking at YouTube metrics, Twitter metrics, all that kind of stuff. I mean, I spend a big chunk of my time looking into all of that stuff, and I knew right off the bat that that was doing some crazy online metrics. Now, it's not always a one-to-one correlation, so just because something does really big on social media doesn't always mean it's going to do really well in sales, but it's usually a pretty good sign. And that game just was doing crazy numbers online, like immediately. So I had a feeling it was going to do really well all the way back then. And then, yes, as we saw the UK charts come in, as we now see the NPD charts come in, I mean, it's looking like it's going to be the fastest selling Tony Hawk game ever globally. So amazing, right? And as you mentioned, EA is bringing back Skate 4. People have been demanding a new Skate 4 forever. So it could happen, Tony. I think that skateboarding games have a little bit higher sales potential than something like SSX, a snowboarding game. Even though those were like really fun, really cool games. It just seems like, at least looking at like sales history, that skateboarding kind of does a little bit better. So I'd love to see them give SSX another shot, Tony. If they do, I think it needs to be like really over the top and stuff like old school SSX was. Remember they did that one where they tried to bring it back and it was like a little more serious. That to me is not it. If you're going to bring back SSX, it needs to be crazy. It needs to be over the top. I would say it has potential. If Skate 4 does well, I think you'll probably see EA maybe experiment with that. But I think they won't do it before Skate comes out. They're probably going to use that to gauge, kind of how the interest in those types of games are. Thank you for the super chat. All right, let's hit some more free questions. Super chats are cleared for now. Thank you, everyone, for all those super chats. Let me pick. I'm going to be a little picky on the free ones. I'm going to pick out some good ones because we've been going for about 50 minutes now. So we'll go for like, another 20 or 30 or something like that. Oh, here's a good one from Karen. Karen Buckley. Hi, Benji. With Crash 4 sales likely not meeting Activision's expectations. Yes, I don't think it has. Is this a worrying sign for Crash Bandicoot franchise going forward? Okay, Karen. So here's what we know, okay? Let's first use the data that we know, and then let's kind of like extrapolate on what exactly that's going to mean. So we know in the UK... it hasn't done great, right? And UK was a giant market for Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, like a giant market for it. And Crash 4, even with digital, did not do great in the UK. We now have NPD numbers, which are fairly low. But again, it had a very short tracking period, very short, but the actual units still are not very good. For example, even in a very short window, Insane Trilogy would have been way higher than what Crash 4 did. So I am doubtful that Crash 4 is meeting what Activision expected out of it. I don't know that for a fact, right? None of us, I don't think, know what Crash 4's, forecast was from Activision, but I'm not feeling good about it. Yeah. Is it worrying for Crash Bandicoot? It raises the question. Okay, so I think there's a couple parts of why Crash 4 hasn't exactly lit the charts on fire. I've mentioned, I think it coming out right before next gen was a mistake. I think they should have waited, to be perfectly honest. I think this game should have either come out a decent ways away from next gen, so like 3 or 4 months before next gen happened, or I think it should have completely just waited until the next gen consoles were out. So I think that's a factor. I also think the price tag's an issue. I think if this game would have been $40 instead of $60, it would have sold way better, like way better. I actually think that was a big impact on it, was its pricing. I think people got used to Crash being cheaper once they got Insane Trilogy and Nitro Fueled for not $60, right? Both of the latest Crash Bandicoot games that were released were not full price games. Yes, they were remakes, but still people got used to that. They got used to, hey, I'm not going out and dropping $60 on Crash. So I think that was an issue for it. I wouldn't like panic about the Crash Bandicoot franchise at all, but it does raise an alarm to me potentially on Activision's end that I think they got really confident once they saw how good all these remakes were doing, Spyro, Crash, Tony Hawk, that the franchises would all just be colossal successes instantly since the remakes did so well. And I think this raises a little bit more of a question of, well, maybe not. But I wouldn't panic about it. All right, we got a super chat that just dropped. Benji with a super chat. Benji, Disney announced a major shift in strategy with more focus on streaming. Will the next Avengers movie release on Disney Plus? This is fun. So thank you for asking this, Benji. Anyone that knows me, I hardcore research the box office industry too. So it's not just that I do this with game sales. I do the same thing that I do here with game sales, just on my own end with the movie industry. I follow the box office like crazy. I'm a numbers freak. So will the next Avengers movie release on Disney Plus? At what price? $30 like Mulan seems high. What impact on gaming? So I think one thing to make clear here with the whole Disney Plus announcement that Disney announced. So they announced that the primary, that was the key word, the primary focus for the company moving forward is, yes, Disney Plus and streaming. But I don't think that means that they're abandoning movie theaters completely yet. I do think the next Avengers movie will be a theatrical release as long as this pandemic is somewhat sorted out by then, right? So we know that there's not a big Marvel movie outside of Black Widow, which has been delayed multiple times for quite a while, right? We still have Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which I think got a big delay. I don't remember the exact date on that. It might be late 2021 or even 2022. I can't remember the exact date, but essentially a major delay. If you see movie theaters somewhat come back, I'm somewhat doubtful they'll ever be as strong as they were, let's say, for Avengers Endgame. I do think that the overall industry is being hurt right now in a permanent way by COVID. I think people are getting used to just staying at home, streaming movies, streaming TV series, things like that. So I think you will still see some theatrical releases from Disney, but I think you will see more streaming shows, right? Maybe an Avengers series, who knows, like a limited series. I think you're going to see just way more Marvel properties get streaming series, just like we see with WandaVision, just like we see with, the Captain America and the Winter Soldier series that's coming up. I think you're going to see like 3 Marvel series per year on Disney Plus from them. And yeah, I think they're going to just embrace streaming in a big way, but not completely abandon the theater. Josh Tarpley with a super chat. Thank you so much, Josh. Crazy that Ubisoft is about to release 5 games in 5 months. It is crazy, Josh. That their release schedule is crazy. I wonder if they will step on each other's toes. Watch Dogs, Valhalla, Immortals, Prince of Persia, Far Cry. Yes, so Josh, basically the reason this happened was because Ubisoft had that really rough financial year. If you remember, it was, I think it was actually just last year. They had a really rough year. I mean, really rough. Multiple of their games really missed sales expectations, which for Ubisoft is surprising because this generation in general, they did really good. Overall, like as a whole, this was a great generation for Ubisoft, but last year particularly was very rough for them. So they delayed a bunch of games. They delayed a ton. Most of these games that are coming out right now were originally going to come out much sooner, and they didn't get delayed because COVID. They got delayed because Ubisoft was like, hey, we really need to do more to diversify our games. They specifically said that they felt like some of their games were too similar possibly to the previous entries, for example, Division 1 and Division 2, and didn't do enough to separate themselves. and things like this. So they delayed essentially their whole slate to really work hard on making them better games, making them more different from other games. So that's what's happened. They essentially delayed all those games. Those games were already really far in development. So now they can't just hold them forever. So they're just dropping them. Like you said, 5 games in 5 months. It's crazy. I do think it will have some impact. Yes. I think that Valhalla is going to be huge. I think Far Cry is going to be huge because just Assassin's Creed and Far Cry are just giant franchises in general, right? We saw 3 different Assassin's Creed games sell over 10 million units on just this current generation. Assassin's Creed Unity, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and Assassin's Creed Origins all sold over 10 million on just this generation. That's amazing. Far Cry 5 was the fastest selling Far Cry game ever, and that was the last full-fledged Far Cry, so 6 should be huge. But I do wonder about Immortals, Prince of Persia, and Watch Dogs. Those are the ones. I think Watch Dogs in the end will do pretty decent, like I mentioned earlier. I have a feeling just over the course of time, Watch Dogs Legions will probably sell pretty good. But Immortals to me seems like it's potentially in danger, and so does Prince of Persia. But I wouldn't be worried about Assassin's Creed Valhalla and Far Cry in terms of sales. Those will be huge. Okay. Let's get a few more free questions before we head out. Super chats are cleared. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's hit a few more free ones. Okay, Kostas here. Did Avengers sell more than we initially thought after all? Well, kind of. In some ways, right? So what I mean by that is if you look at physical sales, both in the UK and, again, without going into specifics, if you look at what it sold physically in the US, not great, right? Avengers physical sales were pretty, I would state, underwhelming. But Kostas, what we have learned with more data is Avengers digital sales are enormous. Like the vast majority of what it sold was digital. So Kostas, I think in some ways, yes, specifically in the US. I mean, it had a great start, right? I would say the question now for Avengers is if it has any legs. That is the big question. And specifically, here's what I'll say, Kostas, as more data has come out. It seems clear that the PC version in particular of Avengers was by far the worst selling version. Like, by far. Because let's look, even the peak concurrent number right at launch on PC for Avengers was pretty weak. And I think that made a lot of people think, oh, its overall sales must be pretty weak because look at the PC charts. But what we have found out now with NPD is Avengers was the best selling game of the month of September, not just on PlayStation, but on Xbox as well. So like it did really good on console. It was the best selling game on 2 platforms, right? So the vast bulk of Avengers sales seems to be console focused. It seems like PC particularly did bad on it, but consoles did really good. So the question now, Kostas, is if it can have any kind of legs. It started out clearly good in the US, but where's it going to place next month, right? In October charts, is it going to just completely bomb out, or is it still going to have a pretty solid placement? That's the big question now, Kostas. Good start, but can it continue that momentum? JCat, I feel like we need some sort of system for all these questions now. Benji can't answer them all. JCat, yep, something like that will be in the works. I actually have an idea on exactly how I'm going to do that. I'm probably going to start doing a community post on YouTube and take, let's say, the top 5 questions there, like on upvotes, and directly answer those right off the top, like as soon as it starts, right? Maybe I'll put that up like the day before, and I can have people post, like questions on there, and whatever gets voted the top there, I'm going to answer before anything else. And then that way, like some free questions are guaranteed, some of the best ones, then do super chats and free questions. So there is more coming down the pipeline, JCat. I'm like crazy busy right now. I'm like frazzled. I have a lot going on right now. So I know, I apologize. I know I can't always hit everyone's questions, but I appreciate everyone for the super chats and the free questions. Crackstar, hi Benji, another Crash 4 question. If you had to guess, what do you think the lifetime sales will be? Great question, Crackstar. Here's what I'll say. Before we started getting data on Crash 4, I was expecting a lot more than what I'm expecting now. When you look back at how good Insane Trilogy did, and even Crash Team Racing, right? Those both did like some seriously impressive units. So I thought if Crash 4 was good, it was going to do really well as well. But I really think it just was launched at too high of a price and too close to next gen. Really, I truly do think that hurt it. So my question now is going to be if you see a big uptick once it goes down to $40 and once it gets hopefully patched or something for next gen. So I don't think it's going to hit 10 million. Like we saw with Insane Trilogy where it did insane, which I didn't even mean to make that a joke, but it is. I think that's probably out of the question for it now. So my next question is, can Crash 4 get over 5 million? That's my next question. Can it hit 5 million? It's all going to come down to how that game starts performing once the price comes down and once the next gen hopefully patch hits. I would say that's my next barometer, Crackstar. Can it do 5? Can it do 5 million? Don't know. Too early to say. Javier Macias Leon. Hi, Benji. Sorry I've missed a few of your chats. No problem at all. I appreciate everyone that comes to every chat. I don't expect everyone to be able to see every single one, so no problems at all. Do you think it will have a system like what do you think about the PS5 UI? Do you think it will have a system like Quick Resume? Crash 4 sales are a bit low. What do you think is the reason? We went into this, Javier. Hope I answered those questions earlier, but I did go over all of that. But thanks for showing up to the chat. All right, let me pull out just a couple questions and we're going to call it a chat. I think I'm going to go about 10 more minutes and then we're going to call it a chat. And shout out to everyone saying hi. Trust me, I'm reading all of your hellos. There's a tons of hellos in the chat. It's great to see all of you. Great to see you. Whoop. All right. Let me go to the bottom. Let me pull a few from the bottom. Vyas here. How big do you think Hellblade 2 could be for Xbox? Could it be the next mascot for Xbox? I don't think it's necessarily a mascot type franchise because Hellblade is pretty hardcore. I mean, that is an M-rated game and it is intense. I mean, the first one at least, and the second one looks awfully intense as well. So I don't think it could become mascot level. I mean, because if you look at some other really hardcore M-rated games, you have something like The Last of Us, which is about as M-rated as a game could ever get. I mean, seriously, for anyone that's played The Last of Us Part 2, it's hard to imagine a game getting a harder M rating than that. But I don't, and it's a huge seller, but I don't consider that like a mascot for Sony. I consider it like a flagship title, but mascot is something that you kind of can just post everywhere. It gets like cool little, things in your media showings. I just think that Hellblade is a little too hardcore for that. Something like Halo is more of a mascot because while some of those games are rated M, they're not hard M's. But I think it could become a flagship title, yes. I mean, the first Hellblade did really well in sales, and that was, a new IP and with a smaller team. And Hellblade 2, they're putting more effort behind it. So I could see it becoming big, yeah, very big. But I don't think mascot would be the level of it. But a good one, yeah, I think it could do very good. Ken B, with Microsoft partnering with GameStop, do you see other retailers like Best Buy, Walmart, etc. partnering with Microsoft or Sony so they can also get a slice of the digital pie? You know, Ken B, this is fascinating because we haven't seen something like this really that I can think of almost at all, where not only so there's all kinds of deals that get worked out with retail, right? But the thing that makes the GameStop one so special is that it's not like, oh, you're getting a bigger cut than normal for selling our console, because behind the scenes things like that have happened before where deals are made, you know, because here's the thing. A retailer doesn't make hardly any money on a console, like hardly anything. The margins are very, very, very slim. But sometimes there's promotions and things that happen behind the scenes where, yeah, a retailer might get a little bit better cut or things like that to help them. But what makes this special is that GameStop gets digital revenue, essentially, which for them is going to be pure profit. So revenue, profit, whatever you want to call it, from digital sales down the road. That is crazy. I mean, I am so curious the behind the scenes things that happen to make that deal come together. I mean, that is some fascinating stuff. Do I think we'll see other retailers partner with a company for this? It's possible. I would say it's actually less on the retailer's end and more on Microsoft and Sony's end on whether they would want to do more of these. I feel like the GameStop scenario might have been a little bit more of a special case one, because even though GameStop's market presence is shrinking, their overall, you know, GameStop used to be a gigantic chunk of the US market. I worked there for 6 years. I could tell you when I worked there, we were a giant chunk of the gaming industry's sales, period. Whether that was games, whether that was consoles, that has shrunk with time, right? They're nowhere near as big of a player as they used to be in general, but they still sell a ton of consoles, right? They still do move a ton of hardware. And GameStop's a company that has been in trouble. So I feel like the deal was probably easier to make than maybe with somebody like, you know, Walmart or something that's just gigantic and doesn't really need any help, doesn't really need any assistance, and doesn't sell as many consoles as GameStop. So I'd be surprised, I would say, if we saw more of this, but it's not impossible. All right, I think we had a super chat. I'm going to hit this and one or two more questions. KH, fun question. All right, I'm down with some fun ones. Name one thing you deeply adore and appreciate from each of the three. I love the positive vibes, Cabe. Okay, I love it. I love it. Keep that positivity rocking. All right, Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo. One thing that I adore about each. For Sony, it's got to be those first-party story-based games. I love them. My three favorite games this year right now are all PlayStation 5 exclusive currently. They are The Last of Us Part 2, Ghost of Tsushima, and Final Fantasy VII Remake. Those are my three favorite games this year as of now. We are pretty late in the year. Something could unseat one of those three, but those are my three favorite. Yes, I know Final Fantasy wasn't developed by Sony, but I'm just throwing it in there for an example. But I love God of War. I love Horizon Zero Dawn. I love Spider-Man. I could go on and on and on down the list. So for Sony specifically, it is those story-based exclusive games. That is the thing that makes me love the PlayStation brand. For Microsoft, it is Game Pass. I'm going to be honest. I love Game Pass. I use it constantly. I mean, I literally use Game Pass essentially every single day, right? I'm right now playing Destiny 2 and all the expansions through Game Pass. I just was playing Yakuza 0 through Game Pass. I play Halo Master Chief Collection through Game Pass. I mean, Game Pass to me is just incredible. I love it. It is my favorite service in games. So for Microsoft, it is 100% Game Pass. For Nintendo, I love their just like really long-standing franchises. There's just something cozy about pulling up a Pokemon game, There's just something that feels so good about playing a Zelda or a Mario, right? These are games, these are franchises that have been around for essentially my whole life, most of them. As a kid, watching Pokemon cartoons and then playing the games on handheld. Super Mario World on Super Nintendo was the first game I ever completed on my own as a kid. So for Nintendo, it's that. It's the nostalgia. It's the, they almost feel like Disney to me of games. So that would be my favorite of each. And thank you for the positive vibes question, Kay. We need more of that. We need way more positive vibes in the gaming space. There's too much stupid, useless negativity. It's useless. Not to go on a tangent, but why be negative? I don't understand it. My brain literally cannot wrap around the idea of spreading negativity endlessly online. What does it do for you, and what does it do for anyone else? Like, I feel like that would just make yourself miserable, right? I mean, it feels gross. It feels gross to me. It feels gross. I'm not talking about being like criticizing companies. I'm talking about the people that are just endlessly negative, that there's something wrong with you. I'm just being honest. Like, I feel like you need to do some self-reflecting. If you're always negative online, there's something in your own life that's wrong that you need to address. You need to talk to somebody. You need to get help. All right. Here's an @Benji-Sales from JCat. So I'm going to hit this really quick, and then we're going to call it a chat, everyone. JCat, @Benji-Sales. Matt Piscatella from NPD said he believes the Switch will outsell the next-gen consoles over the holidays in terms of units. What do you think? How will the system sell in your opinion? Well, I'll tell you what, JCat. I'm inclined to agree with Matt. I'm inclined to agree with him. If you remember a chat just like a couple months ago, I said I thought that maybe PlayStation globally could outsell the Switch this holiday because, it could have a gigantic launch, especially in Europe, for example, and things like this. But as we just see the Switch continue to have colossal sales in the US and Japan, I mean, September was enormous. It's going to do crazy in November and December. I'm back on board. I'm with Matt. I think that Switch probably will be the best-selling console globally this holiday. I don't see that happening next holiday. I think it's going to do really good next holiday. But man, if Switch is still the best-selling console of the holidays in 2021, I mean, wow. It is going to reach PS2. If that happens next holiday as well, it's probably going to hit PS2 sales. So this year, though, I think Matt is probably right. Yeah, he's probably right. Switch is probably going to be the best-selling console. All right. Oh, we have 2 Super Chats right at the end. 2 more right at the end. I appreciate all the Super Chats, everyone. Don't drop any more Super Chats because I'm just going to hit these and then I'm going to bounce out. That's right. I'm telling you, don't spend your money. I love it. I appreciate all the Super Chats, but I want to hit these 2 and then we're going to bounce. Timmer, what do you think the future holds for MMOs? Timmer, this is a great question. It seems to be a space that is hard to break into nowadays, right? World of Warcraft is still going strong. World of Warcraft's probably still going to go strong for another 10 years, Timmer. Final Fantasy seems to have really carved out their own thing. So I think Final Fantasy is going to be really strong for a long time. Final Fantasy 14. So here's what I'll say, Timmer. I think it's a really hard market to break into. I think the future of MMOs is more of MMO lights like Destiny 2. That type of an experience where it has MMO elements, but it's not necessarily the amount of investment on a personal level that something like, for example, maybe a World of Warcraft or a Final Fantasy 14 is for some people. Some people go crazy on Destiny and spend thousands of hours in it, but it's not really like one of those things you have to get the full enjoyment out of it, whereas something like World of Warcraft is a just gigantic time sink. So I think that is the future, Timmer. More of these Destiny type experiences and less let's make a brand new World of Warcraft competitor. You know what I mean? And then Kellegram with the last super chat saying sleep wasn't in the cards. I'm so sorry, Kellegram. I know you're busy, Benji. Let me know if there's anything I can help with, buddy. Well, Kellegram, definitely. I am crazy busy right now between online work, kid. It's been crazy, Kellegram. But yeah, if I get some open time, I would love to play some games online with people and all of that goodness. So thanks everyone for an amazing chat. I'm going to wrap it there. Thanks so much. It's been an amazing chat. Thank you to everyone that dropped super chats. I hope we did a good job breaking down NPD and what it means, talking game sales in general. Hit subscribe. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not a subscriber yet. We do these chats every single week. It's pretty rare that we miss one. Follow me on Twitter if you aren't already, at Benji-Sales. That's the best way to get a hold of me. Thanks, everyone. Have an amazing night. Stay safe. Play some games. I'll see you in the next chat, and peace.